The segment was supposed to be another routine political debate on national television. Fox News had brought in Jesse Watters to moderate what they billed as a balanced discussion on the recent wave of judicial overreach and congressional oversight battles. On the other side of the table sat Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, calm but clearly ready for whatever was coming. She knew the segment was less about discussion and more about being provoked. She'd seen how these exchanges were edited, clipped, and weaponized online. But this time, she had come prepared, not with anger, but with precision. From the first second Jesse introduced her, he was already talking over her name. He made a quick jab about liberals rewriting the Constitution and smirked as he turned toward the camera. Jasmine didn't flinch. Then came the first question, a loaded one. Do you think Democrats are above the law when they attack the judiciary? She barely opened her mouth before Jesse cut her off. 1 second, he interrupted, holding up his hand theatrically. We're not going to dodge the question today, okay? That was interruption number 1. She smiled politely and waited. When she tried again, he interrupted again. And again. Each time, with snide remarks, mock outrage, or faux concern about fairness. By the 5th time, viewers on social media were already counting. A counter started trending, #LetHerSpeak. Jasmine remained poised, letting Jesse talk himself into a corner. Every time he tried to trap her, she simply stared back, letting his own words dig the hole deeper. Then came the 10th interruption. Jesse leaned forward, finger raised again, smirking as he said, Congresswoman, if you can just be honest for once. She gently raised her hand. Are you finished, Jesse? There was a pause. He wasn't ready for what was coming next. Jesse blinked. The studio lights reflected off his smirk, but it faltered just slightly as Jasmine Crockett leaned forward, not with anger, but with something far more dangerous on live television, calm clarity. Yes, Jesse, she said, locking eyes with him. You've interrupted me 10 times in under 5 minutes. That's not debate, that's performance. The control room went silent. Producers didn't know whether to cut to commercial or lean in. I was invited here to give insight, not be your prop. So let me be perfectly clear, if you'd stop posturing for your audience and let a grown woman finish a sentence, maybe you'd actually learn something. That was sentence number 11. It landed like a brick through glass. Jesse opened his mouth to fire back, but this time Jasmine didn't wait. You ask if Democrats think they're above the law. The only people I see bending the law are the ones who scream the loudest when they're held accountable. You're not defending the Constitution, you're defending power. And you're afraid of what it looks like when someone like me won't play your game. Twitter exploded. Clips were being cut and uploaded in real time. Even some of Jesse's usual defenders sat in stunned silence. Jesse gave a strained laugh, trying to regain control. Well, that's quite a lecture, Congresswoman, but she wasn't done. Her eyes didn't blink. Her tone didn't rise. That wasn't a lecture, she said coolly. That was just me finishing a sentence. The tension in the studio was electric. Jesse shifted in his chair, suddenly aware of the cameras that had once been his allies. His usual swagger was starting to crack, not under yelling or chaos, but under the weight of Jasmine Crockett's unshakable poise. She folded her hands calmly on the table and continued, this isn't about Democrats or Republicans. This is about the way people like you weaponize airtime to drown out real conversation, especially when it's a black woman speaking. Jesse opened his mouth, but for once, he didn't interrupt. Because if I were yelling, if I were flustered, you'd call me angry. If I defend myself, you say I'm emotional. But when I calmly dismantle your narrative, you scramble to shut me down. Silence. Not even the crew was moving now. And let's be honest, Jesse, you don't actually want answers. You want sound bites. You want chaos. You want the clip of you grilling a Democrat to go viral before people realize you never let them talk. Her voice didn't waver. Her words didn't stumble. Every sentence was a scalpel. Then she leaned back in her chair and smiled, not smugly, but peacefully. "I'm done now. Go ahead and talk over that." Boom. Within seconds, Twitter's top trend changed to #TalkOverThis, with Jasmine's last line playing on loop. Screenshots of Jesse's face, caught between disbelief and damage control, were already meme material. He tried to pivot. "Well, folks, we clearly hit a nerve," he said, chuckling nervously. But even his co-host looked away, avoiding eye contact. As the show stumbled to a commercial break, Jesse Waters sat stiffly in his chair, staring off-camera while the network's theme music played like awkward elevator noise. He didn't say another word. Meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett sat still, composed, unbothered. She knew what had just happened, and so did millions of viewers. Within minutes, the internet was ablaze. Clips of her 11th sentence were everywhere. One post on X, formerly Twitter, racked up over 1 million views in under an hour, captioned, "He interrupted her 10 times. Her 11th sentence ended his whole bit." Another wrote, "This wasn't an interview. This was a public execution," and Crockett came with receipts. People from both sides of the aisle couldn't help but comment. Even some conservative voices admitted Jesse had lost control of the narrative. One viral tweet read, "Jesse Waters just found out in real time what happens when the person you keep interrupting knows exactly what she's doing." #TalkOverThis and #LetHerSpeak dominated trending lists. Edits popped up everywhere, Jasmine's calm dismantling of Jesse set to music, recut like a movie trailer, even remixed into rap verses and TikTok skits. Fox News scrambled. Their social media team quietly clipped the segment but posted a heavily edited version, cutting down Jasmine's full monologue. But by then, it was too late. The unedited footage had already flooded every major platform. Backstage, Jesse reportedly demanded to preview all future live guest lists before airtime. Meanwhile, Jasmine simply tweeted, "When they go low, I finish my sentence." The ratio? Brutal.by the next morning, every major outlet was covering the moment. CNN replayed the full segment with a panel of analysts dissecting Jesse's meltdown frame by frame. MSNBC called it one of the most composed political takedowns of the year. Even The View opened their episode by standing and applauding Jasmine Crockett's calm defiance. But the real storm was behind the scenes. Fox News executives were furious, not at Crockett, but at Waters. "You invited her to be a punching bag and you ended up becoming the headline," one producer was overheard saying. In a leaked email from inside the network, a senior staffer wrote, "This segment was supposed to challenge the progressive narrative, instead, it exposed our host's inability to control the room." Meanwhile, Jasmine's office was inundated with interview requests. Late-night hosts like Stephen Colbert and Trevor Noah invited her to appear. Even neutral outlets like NPR and PBS requested follow-ups. She declined most of them. Instead, she made a quiet appearance on a grassroots podcast later that week. When asked why she didn't do a media victory lap, she answered simply, "I wasn't there to win a moment. I was there to speak truth." And the truth spoke for itself. Her approval ratings in her home district spiked overnight. In contrast, Jesse was noticeably absent from his next primetime slot. A stand-in host cited scheduling conflicts, but nobody was buying it. And just when things started to settle, Jasmine posted a photo on Instagram. It showed her on Capitol Hill, smiling in front of the American flag. The caption? "Interrupt this." Jesse Waters wasn't going to take the humiliation lying down. By the following week, he returned to his show with a noticeably different tone. Gone was the smug, joking attitude. Instead, he opened his monologue with a serious face, claiming the segment with Jasmine Crockett had been manipulated by the left-wing mob and taken out of context to attack free speech. He even went as far as to say, "I was simply trying to hold a congresswoman accountable, but the woke outrage machine twisted it into something it wasn't." Viewers noticed he never actually played the full clip again. Then came the retaliation segment. That night, Jessie brought on two panelists, both right-wing media figures, and they spent 10 minutes trying to smear Jasmine's record. They dug up out-of-context quotes, misrepresented bills she supported, and accused her of being part of the radical fringe. But it backfired. Jasmine didn't respond directly, but her followers did. Progressive activists, journalists, and even political moderates called it exactly what it was, a desperate smear campaign. One viral comment said, "Imagine getting schooled so hard you need two guests and a whiteboard just to explain why it didn't happen." Another read, "This is what it looks like when a man gets publicly outmatched and then tries to rewrite the story from his safe zone." Even members of Congress chimed in. One representative tweeted, "I've served with Representative Crockett. She's sharp, fearless, and doesn't take nonsense." Jessie tried to silence her and ended up amplifying her instead. Despite Jessie's efforts, the narrative didn't shift. The public had already decided, Jasmine Crockett wasn't just a guest, she was a force. Behind closed doors. Jasmine Crockett's office was buzzing, not with chaos, but with purpose. Her staff, usually juggling constituent emails and committee briefings, were now fielding media inquiries, podcast invites, and speaking engagements from across the country. Universities were asking her to speak. Civil rights groups were quoting her viral line, "That wasn't a lecture. That was just me finishing a sentence." One late-night host even played the clip before joking, "Jesse Waters got hit so hard with facts, his earpiece asked for a timeout." But Jasmine? She wasn't gloating. Instead, she used the moment to amplify something bigger. In her next public appearance, a quiet town hall in Dallas, she addressed the viral moment just once. No theatrics. No mockery. "I didn't go on that show to embarrass anyone," she said calmly. "I went there to speak. And if someone being heard is now considered humiliation, then we've got a bigger issue than partisan media." The room applauded, not out of fandom, but respect. And that's when the power shift became clear. It wasn't just about Jessie losing control, it was about Jasmine taking command of her voice, her narrative, and her platform. She began drawing more attention in House hearings. Her words carried weight. Journalists covered her comments with renewed interest. Opponents who once tried to dismiss her now watched their tone. And Fox News? Their ratings ticked up slightly after the incident. Controversy always brings viewers, but the network knew, Crockett wasn't a one-time headline. She had become a symbol of what happens when you try to silence someone, and they use that silence to sharpen their sword. Jesse Waters tried to move on. He returned to his usual rhythm, snide remarks, partisan jabs, and flashy graphics, but something was different. The confidence felt forced. His usual segments didn't hit the same. Every time he raised his voice or interrupted a guest, viewers would flood social media with a single phrase, "Don't pull a Crockett." Even his own audience started calling it out. One YouTube comment under his latest video read, "You'd think he'd learn to stop talking over people after getting verbally folded on live TV." Fox News quietly adjusted his format, reducing live debate segments with opposing guests. Producers feared another repeat of the Crockett debacle. The woman they thought would be an easy political foil had set a new standard, and exposed Jesse's weakness. Meanwhile, Jasmine's stock continued to rise. She introduced new legislation aimed at media accountability during political interviews, a proposal that, while symbolic, made waves for its timing and message. She appeared on PBS, calmly discussing civic discourse. On podcasts, she emphasized the importance of not letting noise replace substance in American politics. She didn't mention Jesse by name. She didn't need to. The public already knew. At a press event in Houston, a reporter tried to bait her into responding directly. "Do you have anything to say to Jesse Waters after everything that happened?" She paused, then smiled. "I hope he listens next time." Boom. Another soundbite, effortlessly delivered. Jesse had gone on air expecting to dominate the moment. Instead, he became a cautionary tale. His 10th interruption was his last moment of control. Her 11th sentence. That became the headline, and the legacy. It didn't take long before Jasmine Crockett's moment evolved beyond politics, it became pop culture. College campuses held watch parties replaying the segment. In journalism classes, professors used it as a teaching moment on media bias and guest treatment. Even late-night comedians started referring to pulling a Crockett, meaning calmly dismantling someone who's trying too hard to dominate. And then came the merch. Independent creators online launched t-shirts, mugs, and posters with slogans like, "Let me finish my sentence." That wasn't a lecture. Interrupt this. They sold out in days. TikTokers reenacted the moment, lip-syncing her 11th sentence word for word, using it as a meme to shut down trolls and fake debate brothers. One skit, featuring a girlfriend, Crockett ing, her interrupting boyfriend, hit 3 million views in 48 hours. The moment transcended party lines. It wasn't just a liberal victory, it was a universal release for anyone who had ever been talked over, dismissed, or minimized. And Jasmine leaned into that quietly. She didn't brag. She didn't capitalize on the virality for vanity. She used the wave to promote voter registration, civic education, and town halls where people actually had the chance to speak, uninterrupted. When asked in an NPR interview what she thought about becoming a symbol, she answered, "If I'm a symbol of anything, I hope it's that staying calm doesn't mean staying silent. That being assertive isn't being aggressive. And that sometimes, the loudest thing you can do, is finish your thought." And somewhere, in an editing bay at Fox News, a segment producer silently deleted a planned attack piece. Because they knew, this wasn't a battle Jessie could win. Not anymore. Inside the halls of Congress, Jasmine Crockett's viral moment had a ripple effect far beyond social media. Colleagues, both allies and skeptics, took notice. At a closed-door strategy meeting, a senior Democrat leaned over and whispered, "You did what half this chamber wishes they had the composure to do." Even a few Republicans, caught off camera in the hallway, gave nods of reluctant respect. One was overheard saying, "She made him look like an amateur," without even raising her voice. But it wasn't just admiration. It was momentum. In the weeks following the segment, Jasmine saw a spike in co-sponsors on 2 of her pending bills, initiatives that had previously stalled in committee. Her growing visibility translated into real legislative influence. A quiet meeting with the House Oversight Committee chair suddenly became more productive. Her amendments were no longer brushed aside. She was being heard, for real this time. And she wasn't just speaking louder. She was speaking smarter. She began leading bipartisan workshops on media training for junior members of Congress, teaching them how to handle aggressive interviewers, how to redirect hostile framing, and, most importantly, how to finish a thought without being steamrolled. The name of her internal memo? The 11th sentence rule. In committee hearings, she was sharper, more strategic. Opponents no longer tried to shout her down. They learned. Quickly. And the press? They followed her now, not to bait her, but to understand how one moment on live TV shifted the perception of political power dynamics. Jesse Waters hadn't just lost a debate. He'd helped elevate a new voice, and Congress was finally starting to listen. With her voice echoing far beyond Capitol Hill, Jasmine Crockett was no longer just a freshman congresswoman, she had become a symbol of grace under fire and strength without theatrics. Invitations poured in from all directions, political summits, media panels, university commencements. But she remained selective, choosing platforms that prioritized discussion over spectacle. Still, the weight of the moment wasn't lost on her. At a nationally televised event hosted by the Congressional Black Caucus, she gave a keynote speech that left the audience standing before she even reached her final line. "They tried to talk over me. They tried to define me. But I didn't fight them with noise. I didn't match their chaos. I finished my sentence, and that was enough." The applause was thunderous. It wasn't just about Jesse Waters anymore. It was about every voice that had been dismissed, every opinion cut off, every woman, especially women of color, told to calm down, wait, or smile more. That same week, national publications began floating her name as a potential rising star on a broader ticket. The Atlantic ran a feature, Jasmine Crockett and the Power of Poised Resistance. Time magazine placed her on their shortlist for Leaders to Watch in 2026. Jesse, meanwhile, avoided any further mention of the viral clip. He even changed his show's format again, now focusing more on panel segments and less on one-on-one interviews with guests who could match him intellectually. And viewers noticed. His energy was different. Hesitant. Controlled. It became clear, while Jesse tried to forget the moment, America wasn't letting go of it. Jasmine Crockett had flipped the script, not just on him, but on how televised power looked and sounded. She hadn't yelled. She hadn't stormed out. She had finished her sentence, and in doing so, started a movement. Months passed, but the impact of that night never faded. Jasmine Crockett's 11th sentence wasn't just a viral moment anymore, it was etched into political history. It had become a case study in modern communication, in how presence and poise could cut deeper than any shouting match. It showed America that silence broken with clarity can echo louder than 1,000 interruptions. In Washington, she was no longer underestimated. Committees that once overlooked her now deferred to her. Her proposals gained traction. Her name was floated in serious conversations about leadership within the Democratic Party. But Jasmine stayed grounded. She often said, "It's not about going viral. It's about being heard, and making it matter." Meanwhile, Jesse Waters' reputation never fully recovered. He remained on air, but the swagger was subdued. He had become a cautionary tale, the man who talked over the wrong person, on the wrong night, and got humbled not by rage, but by restraint. In the final twist of fate, a journalism professor at NYU announced a new media ethics course. The title? Finishing the Sentence, Power, Gender, and Media in the 21st Century. The first lecture. Jasmine Crockett versus Jesse Waters. The class was full. And Jasmine? She never bragged. Never gloated. Never fired back with venom. She simply continued doing what she'd always done, speak when it mattered, and finish every sentence with purpose. Because sometimes, the most powerful mic drop, is the one you never raise your voice for.